Good morning. I'm Michael Masso. I'm the managing director of the Huntington Theater Company, and it is my great pleasure to welcome so many of you, 285 people and growing as we speak, to share with you some exciting news about the Huntington Theater, our storied venue with a very bold future. This theater has been the Huntington's primary home since 1982 and has hosted hundreds of memorable theatrical productions, ranging from classics to musicals and new plays, including the Huntington's key role in the launching of 8 of the 10 historic century cycle plays of the late, great August Wilson. Our boards, its boards, have been trod on stage and backstage by an extraordinary range of talent, from Tony and Academy Award-winning actors and many of the country's and the region's finest directors and designers. It is a living, breathing part of American theatrical history. As many of you will recall, the continued service of this landmark venue was placed in doubt a few years ago when it was put up for sale. But thanks to the advocacy of the city of Boston and former Mayor Marty Walsh, the goodwill and openness of the theater's buyers, QMG Huntington, now partnered with Toll Brothers, and with overwhelming support from our community, neighbors, artists, audience members, the Huntington was able to become the new owner of this theater, ensuring its place as a cultural resource on Huntington Avenue in perpetuity. With that ownership came the awesome responsibility and the incredible privilege of renovating and preserving this theater, and by so doing, to transform both the building and the Huntington as an organization. And so I'm delighted this morning to announce that the much anticipated transformation of the Huntington Theater has begun. We are hard at work on an 18-month-long renovation project. Our capital campaign to pay for the project is well underway, and our bank financing for the construction is secure. We will restore this gem of a theater, built in 1925, to its former architectural glory, while enhancing it with new modern systems and amenities to broaden the scope of our artistic ambitions, to expand our services to artists, audiences, community partners, our neighborhood, and to young people from across the Commonwealth. We have confidence in these goals because we've done this before. In 2004, when we built the Calderwood Pavilion at the BCA, the Calderwood was imagined as our home, the Huntington's home for the production of new American plays, with our continued focus on plays by women and artists of color. But it was also our gift to Greater Boston, providing much needed first-class performance and rehearsal space for dozens of other performing arts groups, transforming a neighborhood and expanding our service to Boston's cultural community. It has succeeded beyond our wildest dreams, and we now have the opportunity to establish our beloved first home on Huntington Avenue as yet another critical performance hub with expanded artistic programming opportunities, deeper neighborhood engagement, and partnerships with Boston's broader cultural community, just as we have done at the Calderwood. At this time, when so much of our work has been put on hold, we are profoundly excited to get started. This project has 2 distinct phases. What we're beginning now is the renovation of the historic theater, which we had recently thought could not begin until the conclusion of the 2021 season. But when the pandemic postponed that season, our board seized upon the idea of accelerating this work to make better use of the remaining months of forced closure. I could not be more grateful to our board members for the strategic vision and practical wisdom that brought us to this day and the launch of phase 1 of our project. Our friends at Toll Brothers QMG are actively planning the construction of the apartment building that will rise to the east of the theater, a beautifully designed building that will transform our neighborhood, and when completed, we will begin phase 2 of our project, expanding into 14,000 square feet of audience services and artistic programming space, including a grand new entrance. We remain committed to the full scope of the project. As you know, this has been a very hard year for the arts and culture sector, and we offer this new center of energy and buzzing activity as a symbol of the revitalization of our field that is coming closer every day. We look forward to the fall of 2022, when this phase 1 renovation will bring us the new Huntington Theater, teeming with life in the heart of our city. In the meantime, the Huntington is also planning a full season of in-person performances for the 21-22 season, to be held mostly at the Calderwood Pavilion beginning just before Labor Day. But those details will come in an announcement for another day. We have a great many people to thank, without whom we would not be at this juncture today. Some will be thanked later, but our professional collaborators include Brunner Cott Architects, Shawmut Design and Construction, Leggett McCall Properties, Century Bank, NTCIC, Affirmative Investments, McCrosty Historic Advisors, Klein Hornig, Lock Lord, and Zions Bank Public Finance. As you can see, it took a village. But most of all, I am deeply indebted to, and stand here today only as a representative of, the staff of the Huntington and our artistic collaborators. Many of them have had little to celebrate this year, with no opportunity to pursue the art form that they chose as their life's work and that they love. Some of our staff are still furloughed, while others have had to work harder than ever just to keep our virtual doors open. Just as you will see a better Huntington Theater Company building taking shape in the coming year, so many of our staffers are leading the way and helping us envision a better culture for the Huntington, responding to a national call for greater racial equity in the American theater. That plan, too, will be issued in the coming months. This is a momentous day for the Huntington and for the Boston cultural community we serve. In a bit, you'll hear directly from our Huntington Theater manager, Kat Herzig, and lead architect, Jason Forney, who will walk us through the renderings and visions for this reservation, for the renovation. But first, you'll hear from board leaders, David Epstein and Sharon Malt, and our artist in residence, Melinda Lopez. I'm pleased to welcome David Epstein, Chairman of the Huntington's Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Michael. 5 years ago, the Huntington was at a pivot point, and the future of our theater on Huntington Avenue hung in the balance. We needed big, bold ideas and a great team to collaborate to secure its future. Today, we celebrate the collaboration between our board and staff and the many partners who unified around a common purpose: to save our storied venue and deliver to our cultural community a theatrical home that honors its historic roots and embraces innovation and modernity to serve all of Boston and beyond. I thank our entire board, whose leadership and commitment to inventive solutions paved the way for a phased approach to this renovation project. I especially want to thank our board facilities committee and its chair, David Leathers, whose clear-eyed and unflappable determination has delivered a plan to first renovate the historic theater as phase 1, and then, when we are able, to expand into the adjacent residential tower to create an audience engagement center as phase 2. A plan of this breadth requires an investment of significant proportions. We've embarked on a $110 million comprehensive campaign, a transformational effort to create the new Huntington. With a greater scope than just the capital component, this is an institutional-wide reimagining, amplifying our support of our operating requirements and growing our endowment and reserve funds to safeguard our future. We thank our current campaign chair, Ann Merrifield, as well as former campaign chair, Carol Dean, along with campaign vice chair, board president, Sharon Malt, and the entire campaign committee for their tenacity and optimism to lead us in achieving the full scope of our ambition. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Sharon Malt, board president.
Thank you, David. I begin with a very special task, and that is to announce a new gift of extraordinary generosity made by our board chairman, David Epstein, and his wife and Huntington trustee, Betsy Epstein. To mark today's important milestone, the start of our construction project on Huntington Avenue, the Epsteins have increased their lead gift to a total of $9 million. Their gift comes with a special request to guarantee that our home on the Avenue of the Arts retain its name as the Huntington Theater. This is in essence a non-naming gift, an act of pure philanthropy, and we are deeply grateful. Through David and Betsy's generosity, joined by the tremendous support of our board members, along with many committed individuals, foundations, and corporations, as well as our public partners, the federal and state governments, our campaign sum now totals $81.5 million. This is a significant achievement as we work towards our ultimate comprehensive goal of $110 million. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Huntington's remarkable managing director, Michael Masso. He has been the right person at the right time to serve as a beacon through the great challenges of the past year. Michael's perseverance has ensured that this project could proceed during immensely challenging times, and his guidance through the pandemic has been steadfast and heroic. On behalf of our board and staff, we thank you, Michael. Embarking on this building project at this time is no small task, but I want to convey how much our boards and the entire Huntington organization want to help to bring back the cultural life of Boston, which has been on hold for over a year now. Our goal is to ensure that the Huntington continues to inspire and entertain our audiences with each and every production, creating collective experiences that serve our entire community. We wish to not only safeguard our home, but to bring it new life so that we can open our doors to a wider audience with a theater complex that will shine for years to come. I am sure everyone who shares this special moment with us misses live theater and looks forward to the day when we can gather again safely, when we can laugh, cry, and applaud together, and celebrate the deep expression of humanity that only theater can deliver. To all of our supporters, thank you so much for your confidence in us and for sharing your love of theater in such a meaningful and giving way. And now I'm pleased to introduce playwright, actor, and Huntington artist in residence, Melinda Lopez.
Unmute, Melinda, unmute. Good morning. I am the artist in residence at the Huntington. This theater has been my artistic home for many years. I have performed on stage at the Huntington Avenue Theater. My first production was over 20 years ago, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, in A Month in the Country. And most recently, last fall, 2019, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It is a magical, intimate space. It's grand and has a very rich history, good bones, and a lot of character. actors love this space. It's a Broadway style house, yet it has the intimacy of a small theater. You can whisper on stage and be heard in the back row. As a Huntington playwriting fellow, I've also had the privilege of having many plays produced by the Huntington. My first play, Sonia Flew, opened the Wimberley, was the inaugural production at the Calderwood Pavilion on the Wimberley stage. And I've had 3 other plays produced at the Huntington. I can say that whether I'm a playwright or an actor or an audience member, I know that a Huntington production will be produced with great care and attention to detail. This is a remarkable team of artists, artisans, educators, producers, and theater makers. And I have been very proud to be part of this new phase in the life of the Huntington Theater. The Huntington has made a real commitment to and an investment in artists, especially Boston-based artists and New England-based artists. As I well know, they are a force for new play development, and they provide the resources needed to bring new plays and classics to life. And they have helped create space for artists to do their best work. I know and trust that this theater will be restored with the same great care and attention to detail that the Huntington is known for. And that it will be a beautiful space for artists to continue to do their best work. And we'll get new dressing rooms, which is a big cheer. I look forward to the day that the Huntington Theater will become a space that we can all return to, and we can sit together and breathe together and be in one space again. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. And I think my charge is to pass this on to Kat Herzig. Kat, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Melinda.
Hi, Kat.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. My name is Kat Herzig. I'm the Huntington Theater Manager. Today, I am joined by Jason Forney, our lead architect on the Huntington Theater project with Brunner Cott and Associates. And after years of preparation, we are delighted to share the details of this project with you. Having worked in this building over the past 13 years, first as the Huntington's lighting supervisor, and now as the manager of the theater, I am thrilled about the improvements we are planning for our historic theatrical home. Thanks to guidance from Jason's team at Brunner Cott and hard work from our own creative staff, the improvements we show today will serve not only our patrons, but will also improve behind the scenes for our staff, crew, and artists. Our main goal of this project is to restore and highlight the beauty of the historic venue while putting modern systems and audience comforts in place, including new comfortable seating, better sight lines and acoustics, and increased accessibility for everyone. We will also revitalize the staff and crew workspaces backstage, giving our staff the tools and environment needed to do their best work and to support our artists and first-class productions. We'll have a new loading entrance, a beautifully refurbished rehearsal hall with natural light, and updated costumes and dressing room facilities. We'll replace our counterweight rigging system with a fully automated and programmable system, allowing us to move scenery and curtains with increased safety and efficiency. I'm also excited that these changes will improve the theater's impact on the environment and create a healthy building. New and efficient building systems will use up to 70% less energy than before, and new plumbing fixtures and systems will reduce water usage by up to 30%. And of course, we are planning for state-of-the-art mechanical ventilation systems, increasing airflow and filtration throughout the building. Now, to unveil what we're really all here to see, I'm delighted to hand this over to Jason to give you a guided tour of the new Huntington Theater.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's great to be with you all today. The Huntington Theater is one of Boston's great architectural and cultural treasures, but with this new design, we're going to make it even better. And I'm very excited to show all of you some of the things that we've imagined together. Although it's been impacted by a variety of modifications and changes over time to the city around it, the theater building remains an uncut gem, ready for renewal. It was the first not-for-profit playhouse in the country, constructed on Boston's Avenue of the Arts in 1925 and designed in a Georgian Revival style. We set out to create a transformative design that's visible, welcoming, full of creative new experiences, and brings together a beautiful combination of the past, present, and future. And here it is. I like to think that this design turns the building inside out in some ways. The life of the theater spills out onto the street, and the energy of the street flows into the building. One notable feature of the exterior design will be a reconstructed cast stone terrace. It's inspired by the original that was removed in the 1960s as the avenue was widened. The new terrace will create a more elegant architectural transition from the brick and limestone above to the sidewalk, allow for a wider sidewalk in front of the theater, and create a new overlook from inside. The primary entrance to the theater for everyone will be to the right of the terrace, through what we're calling the arcade. In the spirit of universal design, all visitors will enter together at grade level through a set of wide doors just under the marquee, where a set of existing stairs will be removed. Inside, the new arcade is modern and dynamic. From this view halfway up the ramp, you will see the door back to the street on your left, a door ahead to the historic lobby on your right, and the second floor gallery open above you. A polished concrete floor, exposed brick walls, black iron railings, some of which are salvaged from the theater rigging, will make for an energetic space for arriving, waiting, and moving through. If your seats are in the balcony or mezzanine level upstairs, you'll take a new elevator or stairs behind this view up to a second level gallery. While there are many spaces that you all have been in before, our design discovers this new one, literally in the alley shown here, amongst the roofs and fire escapes and above the existing arcade. So by adding a roof and a sleek glass wall, we capture that space for more queuing, pop-up events, and art installations on your way to the mezzanine and balcony level seats. Again, more exposed brick, tall ceilings, and a great view out onto the avenue. Before entering the theater, the visitors will encounter one of two historic lobbies, one on each level. Here is the first floor lobby with restored wood paneling, beautiful light fixtures, and a sense of anticipation. Before I take you into the reimagined theater, I want to remind you of what it looked like recently. Our design will transform the auditorium from its current state to this. The beautiful dome and restored light fixtures will glow gold and soft as you make your way to your seat. A layered dark gray paint scheme will highlight the texture and detail of the proscenium, and then fade away to frame the stage when the lights go down in a way that is beautiful and unique to the Huntington. Looking from the stage, the theater will change from this to this. Comfortable and wider seats in a vibrant red, adjusted sight lines, and new technology will enhance the experience in this room that is both grand and intimate. Behind the theater is a 3-story support building that includes a restored rehearsal studio and event space. Many of its soaring windows had been bricked in and boarded over, but we will refurbish them and open it up to bring in natural light. As you'll see, we believe our design is dynamic, vibrant, and transparent. It restores and preserves a treasured theater while modernizing and reinvigorating it. These acts of design will enable the Huntington to better serve its artists, produce first-rate productions, and connect with the community. And last, we'd like to share a fly-through video of the project with you so that you can get a good feeling for what these revitalized spaces will look like.
Thank you, Jason. That was great. I look out my window and I see sunshine, and I know that spring is here, and I hope you all feel as good as we do about how the future looks, both for the Huntington and for the future of our field. We're here to take some questions. I want to just thank again Jason and Kat, Melinda Lopez, David Epstein, Sharon Malt, and I'm going to just start with a few of the questions that were in the chat, and then we're really open for questions for as long as you have them. I'll just start with this question, which has been asked a few times. There have been a few people who asked us about where we are in our search for a new artistic director. And I'll say two things about that. First of all, we are blessed with an extraordinarily deep and talented artistic staff. And they've been doing a great job for the past 6 months, both navigating, creating virtual programs, but also putting us in a position to open up again at the Calderwood in the fall. And we have had a lot of projects that had to be put on hold. And while we are developing new projects, most of what we will announce next month, not today, are projects that we had already committed to and that we feel still are really important to advocate for and present to Boston. And sometime, we also took some time and felt that we needed to really understand in the moment that we're in, what the values of the Huntington are that were most important as we went to seek a new artistic leader. And therefore, it'll be a few months more before we launch our search for a new artistic director, but we will do so with plenty of time for that person to really have an enormous impact on the season after, the season which will open this extraordinary building. So I hope that answers that question. There was one other question, which was that I'll take, and then we will look to the chat, which was a question about parking. And the answer about parking is that parking continues. There's plenty of parking, as you can tell from our friends at Symphony Hall. There's lots of parking available around the space. This project won't add any new parking to the region, but remember, there's the Gainsborough Garage, there is parking at the Church Park Complex, there's parking on Westland Avenue. There will be, I believe, new parking when the National Development Project happens on the corner of Huntington and Mass Ave. And also remember is that we are the heart of the city. There is a new T-stop that is being renovated, and actually, I think the newly renovated Symphony Stop will be available and open about the same time that we reopen the Huntington. And we still, we understand our role as a theater in the heart of the city. We hope and know that people will use all of those tools in order to get to us. So let's open up and maybe let's figure out how we can ask. Oh, there's one question here. I'll do one other question, which is, what are the costs of the project? So David mentioned in his remarks, it's our campaign is $110 million, but not all of that is for capital. We do have, it's a comprehensive campaign, and it requires, obviously, for us to operate the theater for the 5 years of the campaign as well, and operate our activities. And so the project that we are undertaking today, that is the renovation of the Huntington Avenue Theater, and some previous expenses, because we had to establish a new scene shop out in Everett. That total cost is $55 million. When we add the east wing, when the building to our east rises and we add the 14,000 square feet, that will cost another $9 million. So our total capital expenses for the combined phase 1 and phase 2 of the project are $64 million. Can someone help us find? Let's see. How about another question? Somebody, I do want to actually make a point about the fact that this is really a restoration. And so somebody is concerned in the chat that there might be a loss of the architectural details. And I think I'll turn that over to Jason, because in fact, we are restoring architectural details where it's been lost. Jason, can you help us with that?
Yeah, so thank you, Michael. I think that there is no plan to remove any of the architectural detail. In fact, there's a plan to reconstruct a great portion of it, especially on the exterior with the terrace. And then I think on the inside, perhaps people are reacting to the change in the color palette of the theater space, which we feel like is, it certainly forward thinking, but in my mind brings together the best of what is there, and thinking about the modern day, the 21st century that we live in. And so I think of the friezes and the pilasters and all the detail around the theater. When it's painted in these new colors and new sheens, it's really going to shine. There's really going to be, you're going to notice all of this detail, and it's going to become a beautiful part of the space. So I really feel like our approach is to take what was there and think about it in a new way.
So I'll give you an example. You saw of the photos of what has been called Studio 210 for years, but will become a prime rehearsal and event space. There were these gorgeous arched windows, which have been boarded up for 50 years. And we are opening them up, and we are taking the time and the money to restore them they're just gorgeously conceived spaces, and we are recreating those architectural details. Kat can tell you that we have beautiful antique chandeliers and light fixtures, and those are off at restorers now, and the ones that we can't restore, we're rebuilding. So this is fundamentally an historical renovation, just with modern systems and some changes in color for dynamism. One other thing about the tower. There are a number of questions about the tower to the east of the theater. We are actually waiting. Our friends at Toll Brothers, who are now in charge of the project with QMG Huntington, they are doing design work and planning work. They need to start by demolishing what was our old scene shop to the east of the building. And then they have about a 3-year trajectory in order to build their building. And so if they get started this summer, and I know they hope to get started, but that will be on their time frame. If they get started this summer, then the way this will work is that the Huntington Theater will open in September of 2022. The earliest that we can expand into the East Wing to add that 14,000 square feet of public space and new performing space will be the fall of 2024. So there'll be at least 2 years when we are operating in our newly renovated theater before the tower is finished and before we can expand into the East Wing. All of it, I'm confident will happen, but we are not in control of the timetable for phase 2. Bathrooms. What a surprise. We have spent an extraordinary amount of time talking about bathrooms because bathrooms matter. And I think there's a 2-part answer to the question. First is, remember that when we expand into the East Wing, we will have 14,000 square feet. So we will be adding additional restrooms there. But we clearly needed to improve the restroom situation after spending $55 million on this facility. And so what we've done, and I think the staff and the architects have put together a really kind of brilliant structure. And I want to do a comparison. Right now, or at least before we started demolition, the Huntington Theater, you know, has 24 facilities, but that includes a lot of urinals, and ultimately, and you know, our charge was to make life better for women during intermissions. And there were only 9 facilities in this historic structure which were designated for women. What Jason and his team have created out of 24, what we now have and what we will have when we open is 29 facilities. They're all gender facilities, which means that they are completely floor to ceiling closets, which are both which are totally secured, but they are all gender. So suddenly the capacity of restrooms goes from for women goes from 9 potential facilities to 29. We think this is an enormous improvement, and the men will have to share. And it's, you know, we think it's about time that the men had to share. Does somebody want to, Kat or Jason, talk about the question about accessibility? There's lots of questions about accessibility backstage, not just for the audience.
So Kat, how about I take the front of house, and then you can talk about accessibility and the rest of the building.
Sure,
So,
absolutely.
so as I explained in the presentation, everyone will come in through the arcade on the side, which is ramped up to the historic lobby level, or the level at which you enter the orchestra seats. In addition to that, there will be a elevator in the at the end of that arcade that will take you to all levels of the west wing, the support building behind, which also allows you to get to the mezzanine and balcony seats. There'll be a small lift in the second story historic lobby to get you up to that level. The elevator will also serve the support building.
Yeah, and backstage, so that same, as Jason mentioned, that same elevator will serve all floors of the support wing that's attached to the theater. So that will service for our crew, our staff, and artists that work in the building, and will allow access to all levels.
Thank you. This question about, Jason, what about the number of seats?
Yeah. I was noticing that come up a few times. So as we've mentioned throughout, we're taking measures to improve the comfort and improve the sight lines. So that does mean a reduction in the seat count. So we're going from about 885 seats to about 750. So the seats are getting wider. The seats the row to row spacing is getting greater so that there's more leg room. And then at the first row of the balcony, we are changing that from 4 rows to 3. So those will be really incredible seats looking down onto the stage from there.
I see a question about ticket services. The box office will continue to be where it is, except what we are going to be doing is modernizing the entire ticketing structure. So, for example, when you first come in, the inclusive entrance into the arcade, you will be greeted by, if you've ever been to the Apple store, you know those friendly people who walk up to you and ask you if they can help. So we're going to try to take care of your ticketing needs, both through a table that will be at the end of that hallway, plus roving ambassadors, so that fewer people have to actually use the box office. And then when we get to phase 2, all of those box office services will be shifted to the east wing, because that's clearly the permanent solution. That is the permanent solution for the box office, for the all entrances will be there. That will be the main entrance. But we have a great solution for the interim period until we have the east wing.
Michael, I want to make one sort of further comment on the bathrooms. Remembering that we've also designed this in a way that if people are uncomfortable with the arrangement, there are single user bathrooms on each level. So there are 3 of those in addition to the all gender toilet rooms.
And someone is asking a question about gathering. We did, so let me say 2 things. The first is that we're going to have more availability for events because we suddenly have a facility which is fully usable 12 months during the year. And we're going to take advantage of that. It will be a 12-month facility. And any of you who've been around Huntington Avenue in the summer know that it gets pretty quiet then. But with the services, the structures, the infrastructure, the HVAC of this system, we are going to run a year-round operation and really expand our partnerships with community organizations and other arts organizations because of that. That will get even better when we have the East Wing, because we will have these 2 new performance spaces. And that space is designed to be open during the day as well. But we will still be able to improve accessibility, services, and partnerships even during the interim when we finish this renovation.
Michael, I'm going to jump in. There's been a question about the HVAC engineers that's popped up a couple times. Jason, would you mind filling us in on that?
Right. So as it takes a team to do all of this work, and that's no exception for the architecture as well. So we have been working with a firm called Altieri Seaboard Weber from Norwalk, Connecticut on the HVAC, who is very experienced with this type of work. That's why we chose them. Also say we've had 3 workshops with Dr. Joseph Allen and his group, 9 Foundations, to think about healthy building strategies.
There's questions about the Calderwood and whether we will continue with the Calderwood after the renovation. And absolutely, the Huntington is deeply committed to our work at the Calderwood, both as a home for our new play work, although it's not the only thing we do there, but also it's our, as I said before, the Calderwood is the first of our gifts to the broader cultural community. Dozens of theater companies operate out of the Calderwood, and the Huntington provides those first-class facilities at subsidized rates, and we will continue to do so. So we will continue to produce at the Calderwood, starting again in 2022. Next year, of course, we'll be almost exclusively at the Calderwood with one other venue, which we hope to announce soon. But beginning 22, we will be back operating out of both theaters. We remain deeply committed to the Calderwood and our partnership with the BCA. There will be a restaurant in the East Wing. There'll be a cafe. There'll be food service. There'll be a great bar. And the idea of the East Wing bar and food service is that it will be available whether or not there's a production. We are going to create a gathering space for the community. But again, that will happen after the apartment building is built to our east. Yes, we're all excited about new dining options. Some people are wondering if ticket prices will increase to cover expenses. You know, the interesting thing, of course, there will be additional expense, but we also think that the facility provides opportunities for additional revenue. So while, you know, ticket prices may increase in the way that ticket prices have increased over the last 20 years, there's no surcharge or extraordinary shift that we expect based on this. As Kat said, there are ways in which this new facility will be less expensive to run than the current facility. We are going to spend less money on energy. We're going to be more efficient in many ways, but we will continue to depend upon a combination of ticket revenue and philanthropy. David Epstein mentioned our endowment growth, and the endowment also provides resources. So we are a combination. You know, the theater in America is an interesting hybrid between a commercial venture. We sell tickets, we want people to come, we want to fill those tickets at those seats, but we depend and will continue to depend on philanthropy in order to carry out our public mission.
I think it would probably be important to just mention that historically, the Huntington has been able to provide significant number of subsidized tickets and free tickets to a broad spectrum of the community. It serves our education programs deeply, and that's something that we continue to be committed to going forward.
Thank you, David. There are two questions. I'll answer one about live filming. So two things I will say is that we do expect, and there are two parts to this. For next season, when we announce the Calderwood season +1, knowing that it may take a while for our audience to feel comfortable filling the theater, we will, thanks to our partner unions and the artistic unions, Actors Equity, the Stage Directors Foundation, and the Design Union, we will be able to film every production at the Calderwood, and all of those productions will be available, so that if at any point you have a ticket for a show, but for whatever reason, that moment you don't feel comfortable coming to the theater, and we do expect people to be back in the theater, but if at any moment you feel you would rather take the opportunity to watch the digital version of the show, you'll be able to do that as a ticket holder. So ticket holders will have private streaming rights for shows, in addition, of course, to the ability to show up at the theater. We will definitely be continuing the Huntington Community Membership Initiative. It is fundamental to our role in the city, and we can't wait to welcome you back to the theater. There are continuing, you know, the thing I'll say about the restroom is that what Kat and the rest of our staff and Jason have done is really ensure that the flow, one of the reasons that these two blocks of restrooms are designed the way they are is to, in fact, to eliminate the sort of long lines and congestion that the architecture from 1925 brought to us. And so that there will be a much smoother flow in and out, and a comfort level and security, so that people don't feel that they're on top of each other in the way that now is inevitable. There's a question for Jason. What was your biggest challenge?
Oh, there were so many. I would say the biggest one, which is a classic for a project like this, is how to take the space that we had, which had a limit to it, right? And get as much as we can out of it. And the way that we tend to do that is to try to find multiple and flexible uses for different things. So I see that gallery on the second floor. not only being used as, you know, your procession into the theater, but also there could be a local artist gallery display there. There could be a pop-up event. There could be, you know, some little bars that pop up in there during intermission. And the same thing with the rehearsal studio and event space. We see that being used for so many things. So I'd say our biggest challenge was just trying to creatively get everything in without compromising anything too much, and still leave a lot of room for flexibility and adaptability over time for all the great creative things that we know this group of people is going to think about in the future.
Somebody asked a great question and a very thoughtful question about what will happen if the Huntington is at the Calderwood for most of next year. What happens to companies like Speakeasy that use the Calderwood so well and so often? And the answer is that our commitment to Speakeasy, for example, remains exactly as it is. The Speakeasy season at the Roberts Studio Theater will continue just as always. And really, I suppose we are using the building more, it is true. So instead of doing 3 shows at the Calderwood, the Huntington will be doing 6 shows at the Calderwood. But mostly what that will take up time from are rentals that we've used to supplement the revenue. So while we're giving up rental revenue, we still maintain our commitment to many of the users, and certainly the core users of the building. We will work with to get them as much access as possible. But Speakeasy season is secure, and I'll let them speak about that when they're ready. Somebody's asking about COVID. I'm gonna answer that, and then just see if there's maybe ask anyone who's monitoring this to just get me one critical more question, so that our goal here is to let you all go around 10. But there's a question about COVID seating requirements. So I'll say 2 things about it. One is that obviously everything is in evolution. It is a given for us that whatever the requirements are, once we start back in performance, that we will follow them. And the truth is, none of us know right now what the requirements will be. If we had to, we really couldn't open the theater for live performance now, even though in fact, as of Monday, it is possible to do live performance in Boston, but we wouldn't feel ready, and we don't think we have a structure that would work at this moment. We do believe that we have plans in place to absolutely care for the safety of the artists involved, of our staff, and of course of audience. If we're told that the rule and the governing wisdom is that people have to be 3 feet apart, we will create a seating structure that allows for that. We will basically be in compliance with all the regulations that the government hands down, and all the recommendations from the CDC. Of course, we are hoping that everyone who hears this, and our entire audience, takes advantage of the opportunity to vaccinate in the way that the president and the governor and the mayor, both the outgoing mayor and new mayor Janey, has recommended, and that we provide ourselves with that with that ability to come together more often because of a successful vaccination protocol. And certainly we will all see how that plays out. And so while we can't predict the future, we are anticipating both our actions, our changes. The Calderwood, for example, has, we've upgraded the air flow and filtration systems. We are putting in touchless protocols. We are making the safest possible experience we can, so that because we really want you and our artists back to the community. There's a question about the orchestra pit from one of our musicians. Kat, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we are restoring the orchestra pit. It will be made a little bit bigger so that we can accommodate slightly larger orchestras. And we're also adding a second accessible entrance. So we'll have 2 entrances now going into the orchestra pit, one on each side and one of those being accessible. The pit floor will be lowered a little bit in order to accommodate slightly better sight lines and to accommodate ease of moving around inside the pit.
And I think unless there's some urgency, just go back to the question of partnerships, which keeps coming up in terms of how we're going to make the space available. We will continue to produce about 4 plays a year at the Huntington Theater, which will provide plenty of opportunities for partner institutions and partner theaters to use it. And that's to use the main stage. And the person you would contact about that is Kat. Although if you contact her now, she'll say, just give me a year and a half. But we will be doing that. So for example, we had a few productions. Boston Lyric Opera has produced their Odyssey Opera. We've had lots of opera collaborations. It will be a great space for small opera. And we certainly hope that that happens. But so will the new renovated studio and rehearsal space be a great space for smaller organizations to use. Just as we use the rehearsal halls at the Calderwood to help meet the extraordinary demand of small companies in this city, we will use the rehearsal and studio room that we are recreating so beautifully to do that as well. So, and again, that is just a precursor to a much larger expansion once we get into the East Wing. So I want to thank David and Sharon, Kat, Jason, Melinda. I want to thank, the hundreds of people who took time out of their day to come join us. We think this is a momentous day for the city of Boston. It certainly is for the Huntington. Our artists and staff, the audiences, the thousands and thousands of people who join us every year deserve to do their work and enjoy the theater in first-class spaces. We are going to do this in a way that honors the integrity of the original design, that restores it to its former glory, but that provides modern amenities so that when everyone on this call has decided to do something else, that generations that follow will be using this theater to see great plays, to come together and to participate in this really fundamental right of the city for generations to come. Thank you very much. And please follow up with any other questions you might have. We're having a very good day at the Huntington.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.